This is episode number 45 of DevOps Paradox with Darren Pope and Victor Farsick. I am Darren.
And I'm Victor.
And today we're sitting face-to-face in lovely Las Vegas on a lunch break.
Oh, yeah.
I ate lunch. Victor didn't. So we got to do this fast so he can go eat before we have to go back to another meeting. That's okay.
It's okay.
It's nice and sunny. It's 70 or so. It's just a nice day. We had some options to talk about for a couple different episode options. That ding was my wife sending me a text from 3 days ago. Wow, well, that was interesting. I'll edit that out, or maybe not. But we settled on this one for today. And the proposal is almost, key phrase almost, keyword almost, no one cares enough about Kubernetes. Kubernetes is all the hotness. You call it the
alpha and omega of everything. Everything is Kubernetes these days.
But we're proposing that almost no one cares enough about Kubernetes to actually learn it.
Exactly. I mean, people do want Kubernetes features, whatever those features are, availability, fault tolerance, scalability, elitists. But it's unrealistic to expect people to spend a year learning Kubernetes if their job is to write, let's say, Node.js code. And I'm saying Node.js just to say something, right? Yeah. So it's very unrealistic. And the whole idea was from the very beginning to actually simplify things so that people can get that power without ripping their hair out trying to learn it. And I think that we are not even close to that. We are not even close to let people use Kubernetes. Instead of what I'm seeing right now in companies is that Kubernetes is yet another platform owned by a team of few people where you need to open Jira tickets to do stuff. One, because those silos like keeping things tight. And second, because people outside of those silos are not willing to spend eternity learning Kubernetes. So I think that we are far from getting a real adoption.
But if people don't want to learn Kubernetes and they don't have a choice because it's coming, it's been implemented. The C-level said, do Kubernetes.
But what I'm hoping that we will be seeing, I hope that we will be seeing soon, and there are glimpses already available in different places, is that we should get to the spot where developer says, okay, this is my Node.js application, run it. Really don't ask me about services and ingresses and service mesh and all that stuff. Just kind of, this is my application, run it, do the right thing.
But we have that today with Heroku, Cloud Foundry. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what Heroku is. Now, Heroku failed to actually attract any big business. But yes, I want Heroku type of easiness of doing stuff. Just don't ask me too many questions. It's okay if you ask me questions, but those questions must be related to what I do. So you can ask me the port of my application because it's my application. But don't ask me to write 57 lines just to expose that port.
Right. And why? So that's where, should people have to learn Kubernetes? If Kubernetes is brought into an enterprise, in reality, they shouldn't have to be learning it. There should be a real abstraction, because at the end of the day, Kubernetes is a platform.
Yes, or even platform meant to build platforms on top. Right. I don't think that we are there yet to have platforms. It's more like a baseline that right. We are all, putting different pieces together, but there is no real platform yet.
So could we assume that at some point we're going to see that platform of platforms? We're going to see a serverless platform. There's like that. Maybe there's a Cloud Foundry-ish platform that is good, and you pick the flavor of platform that you want to run.
Yeah, I hope that I'm going to see that. There is nothing yet there, really. I mean, different vendors are putting different pieces, but OpenShift is not that type of platform. GK is not that type of platform yet. And none of those platforms that I know of, they're just slightly improved Kubernetes, while I'm looking for a huge abstraction on top of Kubernetes. I don't want hundreds of lines of YAML. I want just the bare minimum.
3 or 4 lines, that's all I want.
Yes. And then somebody else should make sure. So if if my application should run using Istio, then somebody else, let them set up Istio. I don't really care about whether it's there or not. It's somebody else's job to make sure that those few lines are converted into a huge thing, whatever is really, really needed in a background. But that must be low level.
Again, it gets back to the point, somebody has to learn it. Somebody has to learn it. Now, the question is are you going to be a large company, a Google-sized company, to where you're going to have people on staff that do those things? Or are you going to be Enterprise X that, well, we're doing Kubernetes because we were told to, so we're just trying to follow along?
I don't know yet what it will be. What I do know is that in no foreseeable future, companies will be able to assemble it themselves. So I really think that we are going to see increase in call it platforms or solutions or whatever you want to call it, that people will run. And then later on, maybe companies will figure out how to do it better or tweaked or whatever. So, in other words, basically where I want to go is, you mentioned before, what was it, Heroku, right? I want to keep the power of Kubernetes, but go to the simplicity of Docker. Rest in peace. But I want that simplicity. That containers, I think that we would not have Kubernetes today if it wasn't that Docker made containers very, very simple so that everybody adopts it instead of only few people, ops or whatever they are. Now we got the other side of the coin. We got unlimitless power without simplicity. If we can join those two, then we have a winning situation.
Well, it's sort of where Kubernetes is today. It's basically an empty box of Lego bricks, right? With no instructions. It's like the old shoebox and you've just thrown pieces in there over time. Well, now somebody's put things together, but I still have to piece those in to make a picture. However, let's play this out. I want to just go to the toy store, buy a Lego set, go buy the Millennium Falcon for $800 US, right? But it's got all of my instructions. It's got everything to where at the end, I actually have Millennium Falcon. That's what, to me, Heroku is sort of. It has the full instruction set. It abstracts a lot of stuff away from me. If I need to put the pieces together, I can, but there may be a whole panel. I just pop the panel on and I'm done.
Yeah, except that I think that now analogy with Lego set, Falcon or whatever it is, I think that's analogy for sysadmins and that's great. But for most of the rest of the world, kind of like, I'm not interested. I like Lego, but I'm not interested enough to actually assemble.
I just want to go buy the Millennium Falcon.
Of like, can you, for $100, can you give me assembled Falcon? Yeah. Kind of like, that's what I would like.
Yeah, I'll buy it for $800. I'm going to pay you $100 to put it together.
Exactly. And all I want is just open the box and then there it is. There.
Yeah, but we're nowhere near that.
I don't think we're near that. Simply because the base points from which Kubernetes started is Kubernetes was from day one oriented towards sysadmins, while Docker was from day one oriented towards developers. And those two, let's say, directions never met somewhere in the middle. So we have Docker being dead and Kubernetes being still mostly sysadmin oriented.
So if we have our magic wands, what do we do? And what do we see in 12 months? Is it possible that, I mean, obviously there's serverless is one of the easier ones because there are a few platforms out there that you can drop it in and make it that simple.
Yeah.
But are they robust enough? And no disrespect to any of the authors of those, but most of those projects are run by 1 to 3 people.
We're not there, but I think we're getting there. I mean, we have like Knative for serverless. We have Flugger for doing the magic around the Istio and all that stuff without you actually even thinking about it. But those are islands that they're still just small islands in a bigger picture that is missing. I'm pretty sure that Googles of the world are going to figure out that that's a very huge financial opportunity to provide services and all those things. And some of them are going to be based on open source, so people will be able to run those same services, hopefully, on not cloud. But I would guess that we are going to get there in 2021, not this year yet. We will see glimpses of it, but not being there.
Well, and if you go back and look at whether it's Azure, AWS, Google, they all started probably with VMs and some sort of block storage. it all builds off of that. Now we have real services that we can use. AWS tends to have more services than the other two, but they all still go back to those two basic things.
Yeah, but I mean, what was happening, at least in Kubernetes area around cloud providers, is that they simplified greatly creation of a cluster and management of a cluster. So kind of two of the many checkboxes ticked, right? But those two things, again, are very important for sysadmins. I just hope that now that we don't have to worry about managing our Kubernetes cluster, then next level would be, let's not worry about deploying our application. And I mean, deploying is easy, defining it. So my real issue is how to define your application, not really deploy.
Okay. So how would you define an application? Saying it's hard, but
Simply we need to remove 80% of those YAML definitions that are just garbage. 17 labels and 13 annotations, and there is very little really important information in the current way. Like on an average, and mid-size application can easily be is defined in hundreds of lines of YAML. I want 5. This is my image. I don't know. I want auto-scaling, for example. I'm inventing now, I'm not prepared, but kind of like I want this, and that. I want it. I don't want to define 17 lines for auto-scaling. I just want to say, yes, I want auto-scaling. And maybe don't go over 50 replicas because then I cannot afford it or something like that. Only this. Now, when I think about it, actually, I think that what I really want is for Kubernetes to have sane defaults. Instead of me copying and pasting over and over, always the same, like service listens to port 80. If I don't specify, listens on 8080, let's say, right? If I don't specify anything, that's what it listens for. But today, there are no such defaults. That's what Heroku had, right?
yes, absolutely.
Kind of, you can tweak it to that, but you start with something operational with no effort.
What app do I want to deploy? Oh, it's a jar file. Okay, here's the fat jar. Great. Go run it. Give me 3 of them. And I'm done. And that level of abstraction makes prototyping easier because even with larger or even a smaller installation, I only need to do an app. If I have to write those 100, 200 line YAMLs, that's like, crap, I got to set aside another day.
Realistically, what you're going to do is copy and paste those things from your colleague, right? So you're all going to have 95% of the same stuff and then just tweak those 5. So what I'm suggesting is remove the things that do not require tweaking.
Is there any way that could be done today?
Today I'm busy.
No. I mean, okay. So yes, good joke. I'm glad you were paying attention because I missed it. But is there a way in Kubernetes today that you could set up a sane, or at least, okay, you get a fresh install, a fresh cluster installed. Are there ways to prime it?
The closest ones to that, I think, are Knative and Flagger. But again, I need more. What kind of they're just tiny pieces of something. But if somebody is looking for analogy of what I'm expecting, then the closest one, not still there, but closest ones are Flagger and Knative. And OpenFast and other,
again, more opinionated, right? It gets more opinionated. That's what I'm saying. I didn't call out OpenFast yet because, again, it's a smaller project. He's doing a great job with it.
Yeah.
But I would be concerned about putting OpenFast into an enterprise as it stands today.
Yeah, so that's another problem. It's not only whether we have those pieces, but which of those pieces are going to be more widely adopted. Because I'm kind of lucky that I have probably more available time to explore things than most. But I don't see people now exploring 50 different frameworks to figure out which one. So I want something like, okay, like with monitoring, we have Prometheus is de facto standard. You can choose something else, but that's where you go by default. I want the same thing for deployments and managing applications. I don't know what, there is no still clear sign what's going to be the standard, but something must come.
One of the things that's interesting is the Linkerd. I'll use Linkerd and Istio, right? Yeah. Your belief is that Linkerd is superior. That may be too strong of a term, but better than Istio.
Yes.
But Istio has won the war right now.
Well, most likely. I mean, it's still raging on, but it's most likely winner. And actually, and that's kind of surprising because Linkerd goes to implement standard API so that it can be Linkerd or something else. So it's more focused on establishing the standard, but simply Istio, by the gravity that it has, pulls everything in.
And you see this pattern always.
Yeah.
It's not always the best that wins.
It's not always the best. And I really honestly, it's not only about being the best, it's about many different criteria. One is this tool really good for me? But it's also how many people use it, how many people are working on it, and so on and so forth. And in that sense, Istio is more likely winner.
Just purely based on your word, gravity.
Yeah, it's gravity. Bigger you become, faster you attract other bodies, right? Kind of, and that's what's happening with Istio.
So if people don't want to learn Kubernetes, all right, let's flip it around. Let's say people do want to learn Kubernetes. Where should they start today?
If you're talking when people, we say majority, kind of like, I don't know, like application developers, I honestly don't think that they want to learn Kubernetes simply because I cannot imagine anybody learning even basic level of Kubernetes without spending months of dedicated effort. I really don't see whomever tells you kind of like this is a one-day course and you know what you need to know about Kubernetes is lying, I think.
It's a strong lie.
It's a very, very strong. That one-day course or something like that can get you a base that will allow you to learn it faster. Yes. Yeah. But to know what you need to know, it's not going to happen. And kind of, can you stop a company for months? Absolutely nobody doing anything. I mean, most companies I visit, they have a trouble actually to dedicate a full day on something. Months for everybody, it's not going to happen.
But then that angle is, okay, well, let's just outsource it. And the problem is they don't necessarily outsource to the best. It's like, oh, I have an IT company in here. They take care of my IT. They're going to do it. Versus a good managed service provider, that's their day job.
But now this is the part missing. What I really want, the important requirement for everything I said so far is that I want teams in charge of an application to be empowered to do stuff, including deployments. Outsourcing it, no matter no matter what are the good sides and bad sides, are not getting me closer of empowering a team to be in charge of an application or more, right? So we need either simplification or time, one of the two things. And I don't see time as happening anytime soon.
Now, it's interesting that you said simplification and time.
Or time.
Learning time. Yeah, learning time. But you didn't throw money in there, which is interesting because you could throw money. You could throw money at things, but then that doesn't necessarily mean that your development teams, because at the end of the day, we're all, at least from an operations perspective, we're all cost centers. It's rare that we actually bring revenue to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Unless we're a managed service provider, but even then, that's questionable. And going down the outsourcing, well, if I'm using AWS, I am outsourcing, but AWS still doesn't have that level of abstraction today to where I can't just use it as a service. So I still have to build something on top of it in order for it to work.
Exactly. I mean, you can say Lambda is the idea behind Lambda, but I think Lambda is ridiculous, so we're going to pass it.
We'll talk about that later.
Some other time,
I think we have different opinions on that. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What was
I don't remember. We outsourced and we were talking about, so it's like, because your proposal was outsourcing still doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, the problem is empowering teams to be in charge of their applications. And outsourcing is simply not doing it. I don't really care whether outsourcing, in my head, outsourcing can be a different country, different company, can be different department within a company, can be many, many different things. But I don't think that that's the direction that anybody wants to go.
So let me see if I can think of it this way. I want to go open up a ServiceNow ticket. No, we're not sponsored by ServiceNow. But open up ServiceNow ticket. I say, I want my app. I want 3 of them running, and I need this version. Go.
Yeah, but I want without ServiceNow ticket. I want kind of like, this is my app. I'm not supposed to open a ticket for something to happen with my property. It is I own this application. I want to be able to deploy it. All I'm asking for is something that I can learn within reasonable amount of time. what I need really for that application. And get the same thing, like we are not entering now into like if you're using Amazon or Azure or Google, you're not entering into virtualization and how it works and all that stuff. You don't really need to know those things. You need to know that you need a VM, a server. You don't even need to know whether it's hard barebone or virtual machine. I want a server with this amount of RAM and memory. And that's all I'm supposed to tell my cloud provider.
Well, that is ignoring our differences on Lambda. That is what Lambda is.
Exactly.
Here's my function. I need this much memory, this much CPU.
Exactly.
Have a nice day.
I want Lambda on top of Kubernetes and without real restrictions other than you need to have a container image. Don't ask me how long it will run or whether it's 5 lines or 5,000 lines. This is my application.
So you're saying the Lambda, I'm going to use the word interface right now, is okay, except I don't want it to be a function. I just want to give it an image.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want a limitation based on being a function or anything like that. It's my application. So you're not telling me what my application... We can have a long discussion how much we should rewrite applications or no, but ultimately it's my application. It needs to run, go. So I want Lambda without being a function.
Which is what Heroku and other companies have had in the past.
Yeah. But I think that if Heroku appeared today, it would be successful. And assuming that it would be based on new technologies like Kubernetes, whatever, I just think that Heroku came too early, like many other companies. That's the real problem with Heroku.
But they're backed by a really big company.
Yes, they are. But also a company that does not really...
That's not their core business. That's not their core business.
Yeah, exactly. It's not their core business, and it's not the most liked company in the world among engineers.
Well, depending on which engineer you talk to, every company is hated.
Yeah.
If nobody really cares about Kubernetes enough to learn it, should they go to McDonald's and get a job?
I mean, there is still... so for what Kubernetes does, and assuming that you need at least a fraction of that power, because some companies don't, learning Kubernetes is still easier than trying to figure out all that outside Kubernetes. So if you have to learn it, it's better to learn Kubernetes than to figure out how to do all that stuff outside it. I'm just saying that it's still too complicated for non-sysadmins.
So we want a easier, simpler, open, fast, Lambda-like layer on top of Kubernetes to actually run. Well, and this is sort of what Jenkins X is as well. Right, is Jenkins X is that layer of abstraction to do certain things in a certain way.
Yes, that's the goal. We are trying now. Of course, with some things you're more successful, with others less. But we are trying to simplify that flow. But I don't think that Jenkins X alone is never going to be the solution. It needs to follow with a few other things. So I don't think that Jenkins X team pretends to be that thing alone.
Well, Jenkins X is not OpenFast. No. At all. They're solving two different problems.
It's more like opinionated way to do things. So when and that might easily change. Today we say you want serverless and simplification, use Knative. It's still not where I would like it to be, but that's a kind of our bet. That's the closest one to that.
Yeah. And we really should wrap because you got to grab some lunch before they take it all away.
No worries.
Yeah, but we're supposed to be in a meeting too.
Okay, we shouldn't.
That's a different reason.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're listening via Apple Podcasts today, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a rating and review. All of our contact information, including Twitter and LinkedIn, can be found at devopsparadox.com/contact. And if you'd like to be notified by email when a new episode is released, you can sign up at devopsparadox.com. The sign-up form is at the top of every page. There are links to the Slack workspace, very important place because we also send notifications about the podcast. If you want to talk directly to Victor or me, we're in there. So you can get in the Slack. We also have a Voxer account if you want to leave us a message. And there's also a link how to leave a review if you're not sure how to do that, all in the description of the episode below. There's also a link off to the transcript. I'm starting to get some good feedback about the transcripts, such as it is. But, just to let everybody know, so I'm going to whine a little bit since I have the microphone and you don't. Well, you have a microphone, but people listening don't have a microphone. So basically, for every minute of audio there is, it takes about 6 minutes to post-produce it, including transcripts. So 30 minutes takes me about 3 hours to post-produce. So this is the reason why we don't have really long episodes.
Yeah.
This is also the reason why we don't have really long, in the classes, really long videos, because Number one, it's easier to consume smaller. Number two, if you're still listening to us and you're on the treadmill at the gym, that's good. You're almost at 30 minutes, so then you can get off. But then that's it. So
then I must say that probably my accent does not help much.
You know what? So, and again, again, we're not sponsored by it, but we use Otter AI. And because we've been feeding it so much content, it's actually getting pretty good. I mean, there's still some days, like there's a couple of words that I know they're going to happen today that I'm going to write them down so I don't forget them, because you used the word trouble one time. And I know it's going to say something very, very strange. But that's okay. I can figure it out. But that's what it is. All right. So anything else about learning Kubernetes?
I mean, if you can make somebody else do it for you until the real solution comes, great. If not, if you have no other options, then learn it. Don't learn how to do stuff outside of Kubernetes. That's definitely a waste of time.
Yes. And with that, we'll end it. Thanks again for listening to episode number 45 of DevOps Paradox.